was pitting when Eric Almirola slammed into the wall, bringing out a caution. That shuffled 5 times back in the field, and on the restart, Johnson wasted no time trying to make up ground. But on lap 136, Johnson would spin in turn 4 and back into the wall. His crew worked steadily as other cautions helped Jimmy and the boys recover. With tape and sheet metal buckled down, Team 48 never lost a step, and Johnson lined up 30th with 120 laps remaining. Little by little, Johnson inched forward and would go on to survive and salvage a 9th place finish, and leaves Kansas trailing points leader Brad Keselowski by just 7 points with 4 races to go. And Jimmy Johnson joins the hub now from the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Jimmy, I don't know if you've seen the video yet, but your boys were thrashing pretty hard. They did a remarkable job on your car, but I want to back up a little bit. What were your honest thoughts as that car was backing into the turn 4 wall?
Well, first of all, I tried to do everything in my power to keep it off the wall. I could tell that I was sliding further back than I needed to. Grab third gear to try to move the car away from the wall as things were slowing down, and I still got a piece of it. And I didn't think it was a hard hit, but truthfully it's hard to tell when you hit with the back of the car. Now, there's so much that moves, it's such a soft impact that when I looked in the mirror and all I saw was the bottom of the deck lid pushed up over the rear glass, I really felt like we were in trouble. And as I drove down pit road, Chad said, take it behind the wall, and I thought the worst, but as the car went by, Ron Malik did a great job of looking at the car and spotted some key points on the car were still intact, and told Chad we should bring it to pit road and try working on it. And from there, we got to work on the race car and had a great recovery.
You know, Jimmy, we focus on the drivers a lot. I mean, that's, it comes with the uniform, so to speak. But and I told Chad Knaus this last night, your team could have panicked. And I think the fact that they were able to repair your car the way they did, make it drivable, I heard you say it drove straight. I think it really shows what a team sport we truly have at the end of the day.
Yeah, I hate that I had to be the example of what teamwork really exists within our sport, but you're right. I couldn't do it without all the men and women at Hendrick Motorsports, and that's on any and every weekend. And then when you put your team in that position and make a mistake and crash, and then I come down pit road, those 6 guys that go over the wall, they did a lot of work in short order, and on a key portion of the key part of the race car, I think get that all intact with the screws and the barrel bond and tape. The hammer pounding, you have Ron Malik and mallet, and he'll knock the fire out of something, and he was banging on everything back there. I thought he was going to hurt the car more with some of the impacts I heard back there, but it all worked out as good as it could in that situation. We held kept our composure, as you pointed out, and held our ground in the standings.
Jimmy, I know you guys race one race at a time, and we all understand that, but I mean, with 6 wins at Martinsville, it's kind of an old school track. Do you feel like this is a track where you can make up ground? Meaning, will you be aggressive going in there?
Yeah, I mean, this whole chase has been about aggression. That's what got me in trouble at Kansas, to be honest with you. I wanted to lead the most laps and win the race and get max points, and charging a little hard in traffic got me in trouble there. But when we look at the Charlotte race, or really any race, it's amazing how the championship contenders every week show up and run in the top 5. Through the majority of the season, you see it at times, but when it gets to chase time, you get the best out of every team, and you can't show up to the track at 80% and hope that it's going to work. So we're at 100%. It's a great track for us. We'll see how it plays out. It's a good track for Denny, good track for a few other guys for that matter. So we'll go in there and run 500 hard laps and hope we come out of there with a trophy.
Jimmy, you told me last year that after the consecutive championship streak ended at 5, that you really then understood just how difficult that run really was, and how much, energy, for a lack of a better word, that it took from you. Has that helped you at all this year to kind of keep the season in perspective, each race in perspective?
It really has. This deep in the year is usually a pretty stressful time. And with all the championships we won and trying to keep a streak alive, and first trying to win one, and then 2, and so forth and so on, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and as you point out, a lot of energy expelled to deal with that and handle it and manage it all. This year, we're so much more relaxed, and I feel a lot more dangerous this year than we've been in a long, long time. And I look forward to showing the strength of this team over these next 4 weeks, and hopefully be back at that head table.
Jimmy, you also said something interesting in that each championship season is different. Each season had sort of a different personality. How has this season been?
This season, I guess the focus has really been fuel mileage in a lot of respects. That's the first thought that went through my mind. The competition is always tough. There hasn't been really any bad races for a team. I mean, everybody's been in the top 10 that still has a shot at the championship. So, I could draw parallels to other years there. But I don't recall fuel mileage being such a concern. It doesn't matter if you're at a small track or a big track. It seems to be top of mind for everybody.
Jimmy, best of luck at Martinsville and for the rest of the season. And enjoyed your new book, by the way, that you and your wife put together.
Awesome. Glad you did. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Well, when it was all said and done, the newly repaved Kansas Speedway yielded a season-high 14 cautions. Emotions were running high. We have a radioactive recap of the brutal battle at Kansas. Jimmy Johnson was able to overcome an obstacle and salvage his day. Former Hendrick Motorsports team member Matt Clark is here to talk about the 48 team's impressive rally.
Into the top 10 when it looked like they were going to be relegated to a finish certainly outside the top 20. Brad Keselowski finishes 8th, Jimmy Johnson 9th, Denny Hamlin 13th.
Good job. As good as you do for us week in and week out, buddy. We wouldn't trade you for nothing. You know that.
Situation like that, there can be too many hands on deck, rear deck lid, no pun intended, but they did a good job of working on that car, everyone finding their spot, getting the window braces knocked back down, getting the bear bond on the car, and honestly, the car chiefs are the unsung heroes in the garage. Now, the car chiefs, who are they? They're the guy just below the crew chief that carry out the orders, the spring slingers,
yes,
the guys in the garage who adjust on the car, carry out the orders. Great job, and I am definitely in their corner for what they accomplished.
Chad Knaus was in the building last night, and I shook his hand. I said, wow, what you guys did was impressive. And he said, nope, give all the credit to those guys that were over the wall. And I said, but Chad, the point is, nobody on your team panicked. Everybody that went across that wall knew exactly what they were going to do. And you said it's almost like they have it in a playbook.
When I first started at Hendrick, and I was there for 6 seasons, there was a crash repair playbook. If this happened, this person does that, that person does this, you get the tools, you get the bear bond. So it's part of their DNA, and honestly, the things that I've taken away from working at Hendrick Motorsports is it's all in the details. Cut the details, look at the details, look after them. If you take care of those details, you prevent the failures, and they did a good job of handling the details.
I think teams can look at a day like Jimmy had at Kansas and say, wow, look at the adversity that we overcame to finish in the top 10. Now, they go to Martinsville where Jimmy has led over 1,700 laps.
Back to that point, Steve, they are unbelievable at Martinsville, but you put those days in the bank for confidence, and if you look at Jimmy's stats, unbelievable. But if you look at his last 8 chase races, 4 wins, 2 seconds, a 3rd, and a 5th, it's unbelievable what he does when he heads to Martinsville in the chase. If the 2 car is watching, and honestly, they had to go, wow, we got the 48 down a little bit, maybe we'll gain some points.
Oh.
All of a sudden, they look in the rearview mirror of BK, it's like, is that the Lowe's logo I see?
It's like the 48. That looks like the 48 car. Now, I do want to say this. As good as Jimmy is at Martinsville, last fall, 29 drivers were caught up in at least one altercation at Martinsville. We had 18 cautions for 108 laps. And, Matt, we need to look no further than this spring when we thought win number 200 was coming to Hendrick Motorsports, either with Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson, and neither one of them. They got wiped out at the end of the race.
Are you sure you got your stats right? Because that sounds like Talladega to me.
That's Martinsville.
Unbelievable. So what can happen at Martinsville? The unknown. You get caught up in someone else's mess, and that's the big issue that teams are worried about. Pit road is tight racing. I'm telling you, we've been talking about Martinsville being a wild card. Truly, coming out of Martinsville will kind of give us, I think, a little bit clearer glimpse of who's going to win this thing.
That place is tough on equipment.
Oh, my goodness. I've seen crazy things happen there, Steve.
All right, thank you, Matt. He's coming back. You can't miss Overdrive. After a crazy day at Kansas, our Race Hub mailbag is stuffed and we're emptying it out. The slick new Kansas track proved to be difficult, for some drivers to handle. They're not holding back.
Feel free at any point, guys, to get your heads out of your asses.
We've got the sights and sounds from the Heartland next.